Tonight, wildfires rage in Newfoundland and Labrador. Thousands forced to flee as flames threaten their homes.
And this is our childhood place that we always wanted to come back to.
What has officials especially concerned as fire crews try to gain the upper hand. A family torn apart by a crash that has left 3 little girls without a father.
Leah has a cast that she saved a spot for Daddy to sign, but he won't be able to do that now.
The connection the man accused of hitting them has to a collision involving Ontario's premier. And inside the heart of a champion.
There was just so many sacrifices along the way.
What the new tennis star Victoria Mboko says is behind her success on the court.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina. Reporting tonight, Heather Wright.
Good evening. More than 10,000 people living near St. John's have been put on evacuation notice after a new wildfire broke out this afternoon. It's growing and moving fast, further straining firefighting efforts across the province. CTV's Garrett Berry starts us off.
Traffic stalls at the doorstep of St. John's as up above, a helicopter and a water bomber work to slow the spread of flames through extremely dry forest. Tonight, roughly 13,000 people are under an evacuation alert, being told they need to be ready to leave at a moment's notice. Officials say this new fire, spotted just this morning, is already moving fast and are urging homeowners to get ready now.
As I personally talked to individuals in Carbonear over the past few days, some of them regret it, not taking an evacuation alert seriously.
The fire is also threatening a major transmission line, bringing power into St. John's. Smoke and flames could lead to a significant power disruption.
The helicopters and water bombers that are working in this area, they had to come from other firefighting efforts in the province. Premier Hogan says that's part of the reason why he was warning residents to be so careful in wooded areas all throughout the week.
There are only so many firefighting tools to go around. The province is now making tough decisions on what goes where.
Safe to say that the priority is people's safety.
Across the province, about 3,000 have been evacuated, most from a 50 square kilometer fire burning in the province's Conception Bay North area. Some have been out of their homes for a week.
This is our childhood place that we always wanted to come back to, so it's a lot of emotion. Very difficult.
Eugene Howell says his neighbors are getting anxious for information on their properties, but officials say it will take some time before the area is safe enough for a more thorough look at damages. Garrett Berry, CTV News, St. John's.
In New Brunswick, the firefight remains tense as crews battle 3 out-of-control wildfires, and the weather won't be offering any relief anytime soon.
We know that the hot, humid, windy weather is going to continue for the foreseeable future.
Officials say people in the Irishtown, Tankville, Evangeline, and Lakeville areas should be ready to leave on short notice, and that all New Brunswickers should have an evacuation plan in place. The decision by 2 provinces in Atlantic Canada to prohibit people from walking through the woods during this wildfire season is sparking anger. CTV's Judy Trin explains why some say the ban is an overreach.
Much of Atlantic Canada is a tinderbox. New Brunswick is the 2nd province after Nova Scotia to ban people from force on public land.
What do you make of it? Sad, but it's the wise thing to do.
We're telling Nova Scotians, stay out of the woods.
Less than a week after Nova Scotia put in its restrictions, the ban is being challenged.
Walking in the woods.
Jeff Evely deliberately broke the law in protest and posted it on social media. The former soldier told provincial forestry officers ahead of time that he was going to walk through the woods. Then he was issued a ticket.
Let me see if you can see that.
Evely says the fine for more than $28,000 violates his constitutional rights.
It needs to be minimally impairing and logically connected to the goal. And so my sneakers do not give off sparks.
In Nova Scotia, most fires are started by people. So far, the Ministry of Natural Resources has ticketed 6 people for going into the woods. The province says this year's conditions are similar to 2023, when wildfires forced 16,000 Halifax residents to flee.
It's just so dry right now with people in the more people that are in the woods, the more likelihood we're going to have a fire.
Back in New Brunswick, government officials say the ban ensures emergency resources are directed where they are needed the most.
We're asking you to make the safe choice for our first responders, for your neighbors, and for our woods.
Prince Edward Island and Newfoundland are still allowing people into the forest, but have increased the penalties for violating the fire ban. Fines are now upwards of $50,000. And in Newfoundland, a violation could result in a 1-year jail sentence. Heather.
All right, Judy Trin in Ottawa. Thanks, Judy. A large swath of Canada is in the grips of another heat wave, and it's expected to last for several more days.
Too much heat. Too many heat days.
Environment Canada has issued warnings for parts of southern BC, Ontario, Quebec, and the Atlantic provinces. Most of these areas will see temperatures in the mid-30s, but it will feel like more than 40. Hot conditions are expected to continue through to Wednesday for much of the east. And a heat wave is fueling wildfires across parts of Europe. In Spain, the military is helping firefighters in hard-hit areas where hundreds have been forced from their homes. Thousands of Air Canada flight attendants protested at the country's largest airports today as a possible strike looms. Here's CTV's Andrew Johnson on what's at stake and what a strike could mean for your summer vacation.
400 flight attendants lined up outside Vancouver International Airport trying to send a message to Air Canada and the traveling public without saying a word.
I'm a musician, so I travel a lot, and I also have a hard time making a livable wage, and I know that they work really hard, so yeah, I think they deserve to be paid for what they do.
The union is calling today's protest a show of strength held simultaneously in Calgary, Toronto, and Montreal.
Air Canada is a company that makes millions of dollars. They can afford to recognize the work and the value that we bring, and that's what we're here to say today.
The union says wages need to go up and flight attendants have to start getting paid for pre-flight safety checks, boarding, deplaning, and assisting passengers if there's a medical emergency.
We could be on there for hours, assisting passengers, medicals. None of that is paid. It is not until the wheel pushes back and then when it breaks, and that is the only time in which we are paid. We're devoted employees. We love our company, but we need to be paid to do the work.
That message seemed to resonate with passengers.
Did you know how flight attendants are paid?
No, I didn't know that. So I think if they're here, they should get paid.
Do work for nothing?
It's BS.
Contract talks are continuing. Air Canada tells CTV its goal is to come to a negotiated settlement that will make its flight attendants the best compensated in the country, and also support the airline's long-term growth.
The union is in strike position as of Saturday at 12:01 a.m., but they do need to give 72 hours notice. If that goes ahead, 10,000 flight attendants could walk off the job and potentially send summer travel sideways. Andrew Johnson, CTV News, Vancouver.
Absurd and reckless. That's how some are describing the Trump administration's latest volley in the trade war aimed at softwood lumber. The industry has seen its tariffs more than double, but insiders say Americans will also soon feel the pain of this decision. CTV's Abigail Beeman has that story.
Those in the softwood lumber industry say things are urgent.
We've sent our student workers home a month early for the summer. Honestly, we're going to try to keep our mill, which employs 25 people in Chilliwack, going.
The trade war and the new U.S. Department of Commerce decision to raise tariffs, which along with anti-dumping duties total just over 35%, add up to the most challenging time Andy Riley has seen in 40 years.
We have to put that duty onto our sale price, but we are in danger of pricing Western red cedar completely out of the market.
BC's Minister of Forests called the U.S. move absurd and reckless, while the federal Natural Resources Minister said the industry has for too long been subject to unfair trade actions and the tariffs hurt Canadians and Americans alike.
There's a clear understanding that this will result in thousands of job losses. And in some cases, irreparable damage to the industry because these are massive, expensive, capital-intensive operations that are not easy to stop and start.
Last week, the Prime Minister promised supports, including $700 million in loans and $500 million to support market diversification.
Canada does not dump lumber into the United States, and we will continue to make the case that these current and proposed duties are unjustified.
The industry largely welcoming Ottawa's move, but Andy Riley says his group will be pitching some new ideas to the government. They're looking for help to pay the difference in duties between their raw materials cost and their sale price, which is what makes these new tariffs so crippling. Heather?
All right, Abigail Beeman in Ottawa, thank you. U.S. President Donald Trump took federal control over Washington, D.C.'s police force today, while also vowing to remove the homeless. Moves, he says, are aimed at stamping out crime in the U.S. Capitol.
This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back.
Trump is also mobilizing 800 members of the National Guard to the city. Washington's mayor points out that the crime rate has actually fallen, with violent crime at a 30-year low. 158 years ago, Russia sold Alaska to the United States, and on Friday, the leaders of those two countries will meet there. It will be the first face-to-face meeting between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump since Russia invaded Ukraine. And today, Trump said borders will have to be redrawn as part of any peace deal. CTV's Mike LeCouture explains why expectations for this meeting are already low.
Days before his head-to-head with Vladimir Putin, President Donald Trump is tempering expectations for a peace deal on Friday, calling it a feel-out meeting.
We're going to see what the parameters are, and then I'm going to call up President Zelensky and the European leaders right after the meeting, yeah. And I'm going to tell them what kind of a deal. I'm not going to make a deal. It's not up to me to make a deal.
However, Trump is already raising the idea of a land swap.
Russia's occupied a big portion of Ukraine. They've occupied some very prime territory. We're going to try and get some of that territory back for Ukraine.
An even bigger issue could be what a lasting peace looks like, according to this former ambassador to Ukraine.
Nobody's buying into the current set of Russian proposals, which basically mean handing over territory and leaving Ukraine defenseless, demilitarizing, no security guarantees, etc.
Ukraine's president is not invited to Friday's talks in Alaska, and in his nightly address, he cast doubt on Russia's intentions.
На що розраховує Путін і до чого реально готується?
Volodymyr Zelensky said Putin is not getting ready for peace, but instead is getting ready for a new military offensive. European leaders are set to video conference President Trump on Wednesday to discuss ways of pressuring Putin and a possible path to peace. And that kind of buy-in is key for some.
If these united European powers speak up and say Zelensky has to be at the table, I think that puts Putin in a much weaker position.
Zelensky also spoke to Prime Minister Mark Carney today. The two leaders agreed international borders cannot be changed by force, and that any decision on Ukraine's future should be made by Ukrainians. Heather?
Mike LeCouture in Ottawa. Thanks, Mike. More than a month after Canada announced its intention to recognize a Palestinian state, another country has joined the growing list.
Australia will recognise the state of Palestine. Australia will recognise the right of the Palestinian people to a state of their own.
Like Canada, Australia intends to make this move official at the United Nations next month. Meanwhile, in Gaza, a funeral procession was held today for some of the 5 Al Jazeera journalists killed by an Israeli airstrike on Sunday. Israel claims one of the reporters worked for Hamas, which both Al Jazeera and the journalists had denied. The UN calls the killing of journalists a breach of international law. Coming up, a family's demand for answers.
We want justice for Andrew.
Why the driver linked to a fatal crash is also facing charges in a collision involving Ontario's premier. An Ontario family is calling for justice after a father of 3 was killed in a head-on collision last week, a crash that also injured his wife and 3 daughters. Court records show this is not the first time the 18-year-old driver of the other vehicle has been charged with dangerous driving. Here's CTV's John Woodward with the connection to another high-profile crash.
Andrew Cristillo was a family man with 3 young daughters.
Andrew is a gift to this world. The funniest guy.
And when his wife was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer, he stepped up, riding in fundraisers and raising money for cancer research, said his brother Jordan.
He was there along her side through all her appointments, providing her support like a rock.
Then on Sunday, August 3rd, all that changed. Cristillo's car hit head-on just after 9 p.m. as his family returned from a gathering at his parents' house. He died instantly. His wife, Christina, rescued the girls.
She's the strongest person I know. She had to kick her way out of the windshield and try to pull these girls one by one out of the car on her own while they're calling for help from their daddy.
The 4 survivors recovering in hospital. The girls were told of their father's death last week.
Leah has a cast that she saved a spot for Daddy to sign. But he won't be able to do that now.
18-year-old Jay Winkiru Benanthan has been charged with dangerous driving causing Cristillo's death and bodily harm to his daughters. He's also charged with making a false statement to police and accused of failing to remain at the scene. And CTV News has learned the same driver was also charged in a collision on the 401 that sideswiped Premier Doug Ford's vehicle in January.
We were just driving straight. Next thing you know, you got hammered.
We want justice for Andrew. And to make sure that reckless driving, where people have no respect for the lives that they impact with their actions, is put to an end.
Until this happened, surviving Christina's cancer was the family's first focus. Now it's preparing for their dad's funeral. The Cristillo family has an online fundraiser for the daughters, and they also have a lot of questions, like why that driver was able to be behind the wheel. Heather?
All right, CTV's John Woodward. Thanks, John. Still ahead. Why scientists are flocking to Quebec to uncover the mysteries hiding beneath a popular tourist spot. Long, narrow, and deep inlets of the sea most associate fjords with Scandinavia, but there's one in our own backyard, and it has scientists taking a deep dive. CTV's Sarah Plowman is in Saguenay, Quebec, and finds out why.
A few hours northeast of Quebec City is the Saguenay Fjord. Carved from glacier forces, it snakes inland from the St. Lawrence. Scientists from the UK and the Université Laval are here to study what lies beneath the mud at the bottom.
The mud at the bottom of the seafloor is also really, really rich in organic carbon and is storing this carbon, but we know much less about it because it's so far down, it's so deep, and it's really hard to study.
And so they dig up samples 200 meters below.
It's this really important carbon store, which obviously is really important to understand in understanding how climate change is progressing and things we can do to mitigate climate change.
Each scoop full of animals like tube worms and brittle stars. In a lab, they'll study how they move in the mud, actively churning the sediment and with it, the carbon.
If you think about the seafloor, most people think that there's nothing there. These animals are so important for moving the sediment, building ecosystems, and maintaining the ecosystem above it.
This study is part of the Convex Seascape Survey, a 5-year global project focused on how, where, and when the ocean's continental shelves and muddy seafloor store carbon.
And what we're investigating is what role do the tiny little animals that live on the seafloor play in regulating those huge processes.
And by understanding how the system works, we can then understand how the system no longer works if it is perturbed, for example, by human activities or by climate change.
Scientists came to this fjord partly due to its biodiversity. From the water, it feels large, but on a global map, it's a mere dot.
But what's really magical about the place is that it acts as a laboratory for much bigger scale systems.
Their research now moves from this fjord to the lab, where they'll study the samples they gathered right here. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Petite-Saguenay, Quebec.
Coming up, one-on-one with a Canadian champ. Victoria Mboko opens up about how her family fled war-torn Congo and the sacrifices they made to create a tennis star. Stay with us. She has quickly become one of Canada's brightest sports stars. Victoria Mboko wowed the world last week when she won the National Bank Open in Montreal. Today, she sat down with CTV's Adrian Gabriel to talk about her win and the path it took to get there.
Utter disbelief. Victoria Mboko's maiden WTA title.
National Bank Canadian champion. How does that sound?
Now that when you say it like that, I mean, it feels kind of crazy.
With humility and grace, Canada's freshly minted tennis queen is still riding a wave of emotions.
I'd say it's kind of hitting me a little bit harder now than it was right after the match.
No way, she made it.
Determination and talent beyond her years has in part catapulted Burlington, Ontario's Victoria Mboko into Canada's constellation of sports stars.
If I would have told my younger self that, you know, I would have done something like that, I would have never thought of it.
The morning of her championship match against former world #1 Naomi Osaka, Mboko was at the hospital, unsure if she could even play.
I woke up the morning of the finals with a really swollen wrist, and it was really puffy, really painful. It hurt to even brush my teeth, brush my hair.
The 18-year-old battled through the pain.
Your story, your family's story, it is one of sacrifice. It is one of resilience.
They made so many sacrifices to come to a new country, learning new languages, to rebuild a new life for me and my siblings.
Your family flees war in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Do you believe the resilience, the perseverance of your parents, of your family, has transferred into your game on the court?
I think it definitely does. My parents, they worked overtime, you know, so we can have the opportunity to have more lessons. I made more of an effort to try to better myself, to make it worth it, you know.
You're 18 years old. You just won your country's top tennis tournament. How does Victoria Mboko stay grounded while continuing to rise?
I think having a great support system around me as I advance in my career, to have just great people around me that can make me feel like me, and who can make me feel comfortable as well.
The teenage champion is indeed sure-footed in the spotlight. Her youthful gaze now shifts to the U.S. Open, where she'll be playing for the very first time, with aspirations of winning her first Grand Slam tournament now on the horizon. Adrian Gabriel, CTV News, Toronto.
And that's our newscast for this Monday. For all of us here at CTV National News, thank you for watching. Good night, and we'll see you tomorrow.